Hello and welcome back to another episode of Diablo to D&D. My name is David, and today I'm giving a report on MagicCon Las Vegas. So, not last week, but the week before, my last video, I announced that I was going down to Vegas for MagicCon. I'm a huge nerd. I run a YouTube channel where I adapt a video game into a TTRPG, like nerd here. But I've been playing Magic since about 2009 and 2008, 2009, and I have really enjoyed playing Magic and diving into the community. So I have also enjoyed seeing the things that other people have created. I love watching videos and listening to podcasts. I'm a big fan of MTG Goldfish and whatnot. And I thought, I'll go down to Vegas and I'll bring this year, because most years I go down and just play, just interact. I get more Magic in on those 3 days than I usually do in a year, literally. But this year, I figured, well, I've got a YouTube channel. I want to do promotion, so I'm going to bring my Diablo to D&D setup, and I'm going to show what I can do, and people are going to be lining up to play, and I balanced the encounter for 5 people at a time because there's going to be people who are lining up, and I'm not going to have a lot of time. And probably for the first time in my life, I have realized my own insignificance in the community that I'm a part of. I spent a total of 22 hours, I think. So 14 on day 2 and 8 on day 3. Yeah. And I ended up not getting a lot of people. But you know what? It was fun. I really enjoyed it. So let's start from the very beginning. Day 1, I show up, play a bunch of Magic. Not terribly interesting, just kind of running around, getting signatures for my playmat. Rubbed shoulders and talked with people that I met on Twitter. Some of them actually remembered me, thanks Krim and Phil from MTG Goldfish. Just really enjoyed myself day 1. That was my day that I had set aside. This is going to be my Magic day, but day 2 is going to be my Diablo to D&D game. I'm going to set it up and I'm going to have fun. And boy, did I set it up. The first problem I ran into on day 1 is that they didn't allow signs. So all this hard work that I put into making this sign was gone to waste. Oh well. I'm still really proud of that sign. I other than the centering and deciding, I want the here's where the letters would be. All of that is freehand. Now, I am not the most artistic person. I know the evidence suggests otherwise, but believe me, this is unusual for me. But, you know what? Whatever. It doesn't really matter. I got there at 10 o'clock, I got there at 9 o'clock. What I thought was 9 o'clock, but because my clock had not reset for the new time zone, I showed up way too early and stood in line for a long freaking time. I mean, at the very least, I got to get into the convention center fairly early and picked my table right under this dragon that was kind of the centerpiece of the decorations for the MagicCon. But I got my table set up and I laid out my mats and set out the dice, and I sat and waited and waited and waited. And occasionally there would be somebody who walks up and takes a look, and I'd say, hey, I'm running games if you're interested. I'm showing what I can do. And, even better, occasionally talk to somebody and say, oh, here's the history of the YouTube channel. Here's the history, my experience with it. I bought the Diablo at a yard sale. It sat on my shelf for a little while, and then I figured, hey, I liked Diablo, I like Dungeons & Dragons, and this is the combination of the two. So why don't I, practice my game designing muscles and design a game? So I repeated that basically, every couple of minutes to a new person. I had some people who said, "Oh, that was amazing," and took the card and walked off and said, "Yeah, I'm definitely gonna check this out." And there were a couple people, one or two, who across the 2 days, who actually scanned the QR code on the back and straight up subscribed right then and there. Shout out to you guys. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much. I'll talk about the final outcome of everything near the end of the video, but thank you very much to those of you that stopped by, that not just the ones who subscribed, but also the people who spent their time talking to me. It means a lot. This is a passion project, and more than just that, this is something that I want to show that I can do. I want to be a game designer. I want to create the things that I'm showing to you, and so I'm doing this so that I can get hired, and more people that have eyes on it, more feedback that I get, the more I'm able to show that I can do these things. I can work with people, I can come up with ideas and enjoy doing it. A couple hours in, I don't remember the exact amount, I had somebody who I talked to that said, "You know what, I'm going to take the risk, I'm going to take the chance, and I am going to sit down and have a game." And thank you very much, Brandon, for sitting down and playing. Now, unfortunately, I didn't get a picture, so I'm just doing a dramatic recreation on screen. So, yeah. Now, I had created 3 adventures. One was just the Den of Evil, where you go in and clear out all the demons and zombies and whatnot inside the den. It was a basic encounter just designed for people who were new to the experience. They didn't know Dungeons & Dragons, they didn't know Diablo, just kind of walking through the mechanics of doing Dungeons & Dragons and Diablo. And that is what Brandon chose. He knew Diablo. He had experienced Diablo, and he loved it, I hope. He was smiling at the end. I mean, considering what happened, I'm glad that he was smiling at the end. So the first things first, he chose I think it was the sorceress. So he goes in and manages to take out a couple of the fallen and wipes the floor with them. And at the very end, he's like, "Well, hang on a second. This is Diablo. Where's the loot?" I'm like, "You're a smart man." So, roll me investigation. So he rolls investigation, gets like a 3. He wanders around and doesn't see anything, and then points out, "Oh, hang on a second. There's a shrine here, right?" I'm like, yeah, that's a shrine. I mean, I wasn't including it as a part of the den because I didn't have the mechanics for it. But he's like, what this is a shrine. Why not use it? I'm like, okay, fine. You rolled awfully in investigation, so activate the shrine. It's a skill shrine. It gives you advantage on all your skill checks. So he touches it, and there's voice whispers in his mind, "Go back and try again. Look around." So he goes back, re-rolls his investigation, and does way better this time. I think he pulls out a longsword. I think I had a small treasure table of 4 things. I think it was a health potion, 15 gold, a longsword, and a longbow. And he wanders around the cave and picks up the longbow as well. And I think it just gets the 15 gold as it's scattered around. And then he says, "Okay, hang on a second. This is the Den of Evil. Where's Corpse Fire? Because this is the boss. It's the big bad of the mission. Where's Corpse Fire?" I'm like, boy, oh boy, you know what you're talking about, and I am so happy. So he hears something at the entrance of the cave as this shambling figure comes walking in. Now, I had balanced this encounter for 5 players. Corpse Fire, I think, was only a CR1, maybe a CR2. I think he's a CR1. I said, "Okay, you've got Corpse Fire on your hands. It's up to you. I'm not pulling any of my punches. You asked for this." So he gets off a couple of shots, and it literally comes down to, like, the last blow. And he misses. And Corpse Fire, I mean, like, it was like a AC of 8. I think Corpse Fire has an AC of 8, and he misses on this last one. Corpse Fire had like 3 hit points left or something like that. And it walks up and kills him. He hits through an AC of 15 and just levels him. And like I said, like, he was smiling at the very end, just kind of this, yeah, well, that's TTRPGs, that's Diablo. You know, you die sometimes. And he really, I mean, the impression that I got was that he really, really enjoyed it. So thank you, Brandon, for doing that. Thank you for sitting down. It was really enjoyable to play. So he walks off, takes the sheet with him as a souvenir, and I sit down and continue my busking. Is that the right word? Advertising. And, you know, move my books to the end of the table so that people can see, there's something there. And a couple hours pass, and some other brave soul decides, you know what? I'm going to sit down and play. Introducing Zach, who chose the Paladin at level 5. Level 5 is a boss encounter. This is facing down Andariel, the Maiden of Anguish and one of the 7 Lords of Hell. Now, the original encounter was, like I said, balanced for 5 people, and I'm just like, I can't throw a 5th level encounter at a single player, so I'm going to scrap all the adds, rebalance Andariel's stats so that she's actually a challenge, but not too challenging for a single level 5 character. I explain all of the mechanics to him, like, this is sacrifice, this is what you can do. And he goes, cool, pulls out his mace, pulls out his shield, gets up that, I think it was like 19 AC, walks in, and immediately takes a face full of poison as she does her little poison spray. And man, that was a fight. Oh my goodness, that was a fight. Occasionally using sacrifice, you use a D4 and you take some necrotic damage, but you bump your damage and to hit bonus up. And it requires a very judicial use, and he knew what he was doing, just kind of doing it, occasionally not using it too terribly much, keeping his hit points relatively safe. But it was, oh, so close. Now, at one point, near the end of the fight, Andariel got tired of him having the shield, so she does a grapple check, and I think she has like a 20 strength. So she grabs it, rips it off his arm, and throws it away. And you can see that green dye in the picture. That's his shield. As she moves around and puts herself between the shield and him, well, he doesn't have a shield anymore. There's no point in using a mace anymore. So he pulls out his halberd and goes to town. Oh, it was so close. She had the CR5 Andariel that I built had 160 hit points. I figured, okay, I'm going to do 100 hit points, just kind of seeing if that's okay, modify some of her damage, tweak some of her stats, and he still leveled her. It was almost not even close. He was looking pretty darn bad, but she had done a ton of damage onto him, and he manages to get that one last final hit off. I think she was at 5 or 6 hit points, and he was rolling pretty darn well, and just, sinks that halberd. Oh no! He stabs her through the throat and just rips her throat out, and she falls to the floor and burns up and dies, and manages to level a Lord of Hell at level 5. It was a ton of fun. Thank you, Zach, for sitting down and enjoying yourself. So next up, another couple of hours pass, and lo and behold, Steve comes in. The great Steve comes in and sits down and faces against Griswold and his army of natural 20s. So the level 3 encounter is a search and rescue. You're supposed to show up, wander through the town, maybe find some stuff, maybe have a combat encounter or two, which would modify how many enemies show up at the end. But since this is one person, one encounter, I switched it around. I didn't have a battle mat for Tristram, so I took Andariel's lair and changed the entrance to the end of the hall, end of the throne room, so it mimicked Tristram Cathedral. So Steve chose a necromancer. Necromancers are great. They have golems. Definitely my favorite class. But as he walks in, he hears that there's some roaring going on as this massive zombie called Griswold is taunting the person he's supposed to rescue that's inside a cage behind the altar in the cathedral. I'm really nervous about doing this one because it's supposed to be a stealth mission, and I kind of turned it into a combat encounter. Well, we get creative with some decent rolls and some very active imagination. Steve rigs up this trap, taking some rope and some barrels and putting it up above the door so that anybody who comes through is going to get hit. I love this. Oh my gosh, I love it. He gets himself situated and bangs on the door on the closed doors of the cathedral, and the room goes quiet, and then there's the you go find what it is, find out what's making that noise, and the door opens and the barrels fall and absolutely murk the goat man that had poked its head through. And I think the second one also got hit, but it cut down the number of creatures that it was facing. I think it was like 3 or 4 goatmen and Griswold. The goatmen die pretty fast with this wonderful golem being the tank. It's a clay golem. It deals 3 damage on a hit because it's not supposed to deal damage. It's supposed to be a tank, and tank it did. It took a couple hits from the goatmen, got slowed, all the while Steve with his necromancers throwing daggers from behind. Griswold is just furious. How dare you come into his cathedral, into his territory, and take out his minions. So he comes rushing up and immediately crits on the golem. Another round of attacking, and next turn immediately crits on the golem. And it happens again. I think he missed the next shot, and then the next one was another natural 20. And it was beautiful to see this of just, oops. I'm not pulling punches here. Like literally, like this guy he's a blacksmith, right? So he's practiced this overhead swing and down. He has a decent con, so he's actually resisting the slowing magics of the clay golem. But he is going to town on this thing, and then he natural ones, and then the next round natural ones, and so it's just kind of this. Oh, he's either dealing a ton of damage or absolutely nothing, just nothing in between. But it was actually really, really good. Eventually, the golem goes down, and Griswold comes running up. Oh, that's what it was. He comes, he clears out the golem, and then comes running up to the necromancer, and swings and natural ones. So what I usually do for this one, if I had multiple people for natural ones, I just say it's a miss, don't worry about it. But for this one, I was like, for this one, I'm going to implement my house rule that natural ones, you roll again to see how bad it is. On an 18 through 20, it's just a miss, but on lower ones, it's going to be something interesting. He rolls, and his hammer flies out of his hand. Now he's stuck with an empty hand, and he's like, okay, fine. So he backs up and kind of maneuvers around and says, okay, look, you're trying to rescue Deckard Cain? Fine, here's the key, just don't kill me, leave me alone. Throws the key at the necromancer, who takes a couple points of damage in the face and just turns around and runs away. Rescue mission successful. It was a ton of fun to do this one. Thank you, Steve, very much for coming in and playing on that one and facing down 3 natural 20s almost in a row. And of course, same as always, Steve takes the takes the sheet and walks away. So next up was James. James picked up the level 1 encounter, the Den of Evil, and chose the Necromancer. Now, I believe James was new to D&D, but knew Diablo. I think. I can't remember. But his choice of Necromancer was actually really nice. Well, okay, nice in some ways and problematic in others. So I'll explain. So the Den of Evil, you're facing down Fallen. Fallen are they're swarm creatures. Okay, you throw a ton of them at your players and they die really easily. The problem is the Necromancer doesn't really have a ton of long-ranged abilities because they have their Golem, and the Golem only deals 3 damage. And Fallen have 4 hit points apiece, so it's not enough to one-shot them. But he comes in, he brings in his Golem. There's only a couple of Fallen in the cave. I think I threw 3 Fallen and a Fallen Shaman. I was like, he's a newer player, so let's tweak this back a bit. And he did way better than I thought he would. He comes running up, murks a couple of them, and I've just got to go, oh shoot. He's actually clearing these things a lot faster than I thought he would. He gets in there, he gets right up in there with his dagger, rolls pretty darn well. I think he has a +2 to dexterity, which means if he rolls a 2 or higher, a 75% chance on the damage roll, then he can just one-shot the Fallen. And he does pretty darn well. So I tell him, you hear a screech deeper into the cave as 2 more Fallen come running up. I'm like, I got to throw a challenge at this guy. He's going too fast. He finds out that the Fallen Shaman can actually raise Fallen. Like, this thing is actually dangerous. He's got to take it out. So he puts the Golem right up next to it and comes running in with his Necromancer, and they flank the Golem, or the Golem. They flank the Shaman and take it out really quickly. And I describe how once the Fallen Shaman goes down, that the rest of the Fallen start getting kind of jittery and nervous because their leader's gone. One of the mechanics that never came up in this combat is that if the Fallen are killed, if there's a Fallen that's killed in one shot that's close by, the other Fallen run around and reposition themselves. But because the Golem is only dealing 3 damage and he was able to clear up some of the other ones pretty quickly, it never really came up. But at the very end, I think he was running low on hit points. Maybe I think it was a couple of hit points, and he would have gone down. There's 1 Fallen left, and he brings up his Golem, puts his Necromancer right next to him on the other side, flanks it, and gets advantage, and manages to take it out. And it was actually really fun doing this. I mean, I say that for everybody, but honestly, this was really enjoyable to do because, I mean, a newer player getting to explain mechanics, getting to explain how things work, the flavor of these creatures, probably should have shown what they looked like now that I'm thinking about it. But I think I did a fairly good job. And he seemed to really enjoy it. So I'm very grateful to James for sitting down and playing. Thank you very much. And I hope you enjoyed it. And of course, grabs a sheet as a souvenir and takes off. The next person to sit down a little while later was Johnathan. And he chose... he actually knew Diablo. He knew Dungeons and Dragons. So he was, he chose hard mode. He went with the Sorceress and Andariel. And let me tell you, this was a ton of fun and so terrifyingly I was so scared about running this because Andariel, I'd run it before for Zach, but this is the Sorceress. They have a +0 con. They have at level 5, they only have 22 hit points. This could be really, really dangerous. but he handled it like a pro. Oh my gosh. So first things first, he comes walking in. The room is quiet, and comes walking up to the door that leads into Andariel's lair, and pokes his head in, sees that there's Andariel, and hucks a firebolt down range. Immediately hits, and rolls like 13 damage. Well, the thing about Fire and Andariel is that she really doesn't like it. She's vulnerable, so she takes twice as much damage, and that 13 turned into 26, and I'm looking at her 100 hit points that I balanced this encounter at, and I'm like, oh, she could probably go down pretty darn quickly, and go down quickly she did. So the firebolt goes down range. He ducks around the corner, basically kites Andariel. She comes running down there, 40 feet of movement, dashes 80 feet of movement, and Johnathan, pokes his head back through, throws down another fireball, another like 26, 38. I can't remember how much it was. He was rolling really, really well. And I show him that he has telekinesis. Telekinesis is an action to deal a moderate amount of lightning damage and push something that is large or smaller back 5 feet. It's a way to gain some distance, to knock people around so that you don't have to disengage. You'd also be able to get like a little bit of damage on somebody. So for this encounter, I had said you can use telekinesis as a bonus action, just kind of attempting to power up the sorceress, because otherwise, like, you got to get something in here, because otherwise you are dead. You have to be a team player. So he uses that bonus action, telekinesis, knocks her back 5 feet, deals 3 points of damage, yay, and retreats further back into the antechamber through a 5-foot door. And Andariel is large, so she actually had to squeeze through the door, which reduced her movement, but she ends up right there, literally cornering him, and she had to end her turn. Johnathan goes, well, I've got to get one last shot off, so he fires up his firebolt, deals a little bit of damage, and then goes, okay, well, make a strength saving throw against telekinesis, and she fails. She was at 2 hit points, and it deals proficiency damage. So that's 3 damage, and she topples over. So Andariel, the boss of Act 1, dies in essentially 3 hits. 3 big hits with some minor tickles in between. He took a little bit of poison damage because she has a poison bullet, ranged attack. But let me tell you, it was so stressful trying to figure out, like, I want him to have a good encounter. I don't want to pull punches, but 22 hit points is 22 hit points. But no, I straight up did what Andariel would do. She didn't have her legendary actions, so be grateful for that. But, oh man, there was so much tension, at least on my end. And thank you, Johnathan, for stress testing that and showing that, yeah, with some good tactics, you can overcome a Lord of Hell. All right, and the last one is May. Let me tell you something. May had one of, if not the best, cleverest uses of starting items I have ever seen. So they chose the sorceress and the level 3 encounter. The level 3 encounter is supposed to be a stealth mission. Sorceresses at level 3 have 14 hit points, so not a lot of combat is supposed to be going on at level 3 with 14 hit points. And like I mentioned, this one is supposed to be a stealth encounter, so I was really stressing that this could go really badly, because 14 hit points. Now, 15 AC because of mage armor, but still 14 hit points. So I described the approach into town. There's ash everywhere, burned flesh and whatnot. And you come up on a cathedral and you see that there is an entrance, and immediately, first question, is there a side entrance? And I just said, oh my gosh, this is brilliant. Nobody's done this before. Yes, there is a side entrance. You walk around the corner and there is a door that leads into the monk's kitchen. You know, there's rotting meat hanging up and there's boxes and barrels and there's a stove and whatnot. And you see a door. It is closed. I look through the door. Rolled me stealth. Rolled fairly well. They open the door and there is Griswold. And taunting that, how could you? You stay a while and listen, taunting Deckard Cain. And with a fairly low perception roll, Griswold holds up something, but you couldn't really see it. And you catch a flash through the crack of the door on the other side, but you don't know exactly what it was. But there seems to be other things in the room. So the next question. May looks down at the character sheet and starts kind of scrolling through the items and says, oh, there's a bottle of ink. Can I throw the bottle of ink as a distraction? And I go, this is brilliant. Thank you for reading your sheet. Thank you for using this. So I say, okay, make an attack roll. I think it was a 12 or 13. And I said, you clip the head of Griswold as it flies, just barely, but it smashes on the ground on the other side. And Griswold, who has an 8 intelligence, just kind of goes, wait, what was that? I roll perception and he gets like a 3. So he's looking around just kind of, what's going on? Ink? Where'd this come from? And May goes, okay, I'd like to make an attack roll and nat ones. So there's this moment where Griswold kind of bends down to look at the ink and get a better look. And the firebolt just goes right over his head and smashes against the back wall. And I said, look, he got a 3. He's completely oblivious. You can roll again. So another firebolt, this time hitting him square in the back as he stands back up. And he roars and turns around. You, how dare you enter and attack us? Roll for initiative. I think May was going first. Yeah, first in the initiative, gets off another shot at Griswold and then closes the door and holds it closed. And I'm like, okay, this is going to be interesting because sorceresses don't have a lot of strength. I mean, this one has an 8 strength. We'll see. So there's a clattering as some skeletons come running up to the door, and one grabs the handle and pulls. And pulls. And pulls. And I said, okay, make an opposed athletics check. And May gets a 15 or something like that. And the skeleton gets like an 8. Not very strengthy. Strong, that's the word. Not very strong either. But I say, you've seen a barbarian do this before, where they grab the handle of a door and then they put their foot on the door jamb and just kind of pull with all of their body. And you hold the door shut successfully. And then May says, okay, well, I want to shove it. Like I open the door really quickly and try to knock it back to get some room. I say, okay, give me an athletics check, and it makes a dexterity saving throw or whatever, and it gets knocked back. May steps in, starts combat, and takes a couple hits with the short sword. Short sword? Yeah, the short sword from the skeleton. There's a couple shots off with the other skeleton's short bows, and they actually miss quite a bit. And Griswold comes running up. Now, Griswold is a blacksmith. He is big, and his hammer normally does 2d6 plus 2, or 2d6 plus 4, because he's got an 18 strength. I cut it down because sorceress and one player, but instead Griswold grabs the sorceress and goes, "How could you? Why are you attacking us? What's going on?" And at that moment, I say, you see that there's a key that matches like the iron of the cage that Deckard Cain is trapped in. And once again, back to the character sheet, kind of, okay, this bag of sand. And I go, oh my goodness. Yes, it's a bag of sand. It's supposed to be used for writing. You sprinkle it on the ink so that it doesn't run when you're writing with a quill. And May goes, okay, well, I'm going to grab the bag of sand and throw it in his face. And I say, okay, he's going to make a dexterity saving throw with disadvantage because this is really unexpected. He thought, Griswold's thinking you're going to pull out a weapon or whatnot, just not pocket sand. Literal pocket sand. So he fails the roll. He gets blinded for 1d4 turns, just one turn. Okay. So I say, okay, you have until the end of your next turn, and then Griswold can see again. So Griswold lets go and tries to scrape the sand out of his eyes. And May goes, I grab the key and I rush around Griswold to the cage, stick it in, unlock, use my action to open the Scroll of Town portal. It can take us back to the rogues camp, grab Deckard Cain, and fall backwards through the portal. And I'm like, you got it. Abso-freaking-lutely. This is the coolest moment. Managing to, didn't kill a single skeleton, didn't really damage Griswold a ton, but let me tell you something. I was nervous the entire time because I thought this was going to go around badly. I expected I'm going to kite these things. Skeletons have a ranged attack. I chose skeletons over goatmen because they have lower hit points. But I thought the encounter was going to go, well, I'm going to attack and then kite these things back and then, attack from long range. Griswold's fairly slow. He only has 20 feet of movement. So if I can keep ahead of him, then he's not going to be able to get to me. And it's just straight up, nah, we're doing the rescue mission in the rescue mission style. And it was close and it was amazing and I loved it. So thank you, May, for coming in and sitting down and having fun on day 3 of the convention. And that was it. That was all the players that came in and sat down and had an encounter. There were quite a few people who'd said, I would do this. I would come in and sit down, but I've got something going on. I've got, I'm in between rounds, or I've got a panel that I need to get to, or something. And to those of you that stopped by, thank you very much for stopping by. I apologize for not being considerate of the schedule, which, that's on me. So thank you all for stopping by. I had a ton of fun talking. Some of it was not my personal project. Some of it was just D&D stuff. I had somebody talk about throwing an albino red dragon at their players, and I got to meet a bunch of other really, really cool people. I got to meet the Alolan Professor, I think was his name. Professor Jim, that's who it was. And I can't remember his name, but he was part of the Knights of the Folding Table. And I also ran into at Tower Slayer. Yeah, Tower Slayer, who makes tokens, pixel tokens. These are all the people who basically gave me their business cards. Oh yeah, and Amanda Beans. Amanda Beans, who had I can't remember what she does, but yeah, thank you all for stopping by and talking. I know I had a lot of fun, and I hope that you all had a lot of fun. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Have a good whatever.